Well, here's a video I didn't want to make. As you can see from the headline, James Gunn writing new Superman film. Oh boy. Henry Cavill will not return. A lot about this speaks to that there is still very much utter chaos at Warner Discovery. So it says, oh, I had to play a different character. So they had this meeting. Talks about James Gunn saying, Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go. So he's apparently got his plan and map. And I guess that'll be what's presented to Zaslav if it hasn't already been. Which we couldn't be more over the moon about. We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life. More origin stuff, you know. So the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. But we just had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans, and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. Which could be anything. One of the ideas coming into it, because Gunn has teased a lot of different images, and most notably Alex Ross's depiction of Superman in Kingdom Come. And whoa, is that what they're working towards? And I thought, you know, Henry Cavill, by the end of their 10-year plan, he would make a good Kingdom Come Superman. But then it says, hey, maybe they're jumping the gun on this. And they'll hire a young Superman to play Superman in his younger years. And then Henry will come back as Superman for the older Superman. Well, no, I'm afraid that's not really the case. Because then we got Henry's response to this. So on Instagram, he says, I just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. So there you go. He confirms that. But then there's this other little interesting tidbit. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, that's not that long ago. This is the middle of December, so it's not that long ago now. Prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. And, of course, for those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he set for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed. So whatever other project they were talking about, even if it involves DC, it's not Superman. But what Superman stands for never will, and it never pass, you know. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. So not what I wanted to hear, but it just goes to show, like, he's spelling this out, because this is rather embarrassing to Henry. Yet again, they've screwed him over. Because they say, hey, yeah, so obviously at some point, not long ago, that was the deal. You know, a lot of people say, no, I'm hearing he's not getting it. There was a deal, or the beginnings of it, and that was what they're thinking. And for whatever reason, they've changed their mind. You know, so what is it? Is it the money? They can't afford him. It would be cheaper. That I can understand in a lot of ways. It would be cheaper to have new unknown actors who don't cost as much as Henry. The problem is, this is really they're in a bad position at the outset. So the idea is to, and this was weird about one of the statements in response to that Hollywood Reporter article that James Gunn did recently, which now this is starting to look like that article was more on the money than not. It just figured, hey, he said some of that's true, some of it's half true, some of it's not true, and some of it I haven't figured out yet. That sort of thing. which I was like, oh, okay, so the true thing was the Superman. I mean, the Wonder Woman, being scrapped, and all that, and that some of the other elements are not quite as set in stone. I thought Henry was probably pretty solid to remain as Superman. Everything else might be a little shaky, but that seemed pretty solid, especially when he was like, no, Superman's vital, very important, and the priority. And then this, because he's extremely popular in the role, and this is going to be quite the letdown, and you can't just pass it off to Snyder bots and the like. This was a means by which to hit the ground running, but I guess the cost is too high, or perhaps the other deal here is this Dwayne Johnson business. Black Adam been a smash hit, had jumped to $1 billion, this would be a very different story indeed. But it didn't. And despite the shenanigans going on here, he says it was profitable through other sources. It was on digital and all that. And other people said, no, not really. Either way, it did not make the money they wanted. And so he's on the outs. And there was always this scuttlebutt that Dwayne Johnson's crowd were not getting along with James Gunn's crowd. And I guess there's a lot of truth to that. And that perhaps Cavill, because he's represented by the same agent, stood by Johnson. And they said, well, then, they shook hands. Cavill has always been the quintessential gentleman. I'm sure he seems to understand how to handle this better than Patty Jenkins did. And it's just sad. He never got a shot at a really good Superman film. The films he were in were flawed. And I think he could have totally nailed it. But he's never going to get the opportunity. And this is it. He's been saying that, I'm fighting for the role, the cape's in my closet. Here he's saying, well, that's that. And look, they screwed him over and not getting him in the role for those years. I suspect holding out for Bad Robot and all that crap. And also the mustache thing they did to him and all that. And now this. And it's a different crew. So the other aspect of the Hollywood Reporter full reboot, yeah, this is all new cast. I'm guessing Aquaman will be the last of the old movies. They got a Blue Beetle movie that's, I guess, still set in that universe. I don't know how they're going to do that. It just came out, by the time you get there, unless they're going to kind of shuffle the deck around on that one to where it fits in with the new universe they're going to introduce. Because that's still all leftovers from the previous regime. It's just all bizarre. And I guess the story about Jason Momoa dropping Aquaman in favor of Lobo, probably true. What if Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom becomes a smash hit? By all accounts in the screen test, it's not very good. But then what? You don't do another Aquaman? And I guess Gal Gadot is out too. I just figured, oh, well, Patty Jenkins screwed up and they booted her out. But Gal Gadot, they'll continue. Maybe not. It's all very, it's bizarre. And I don't think we don't know why. Something happened and we just don't know. Pretty sure, yeah, Ben Affleck. Now, it says Cavill isn't the only star from the last DC year to sit down with Gunn and Safran. Ben Affleck, who has played Batman in numerous films from the label, recently sat down to specifically discuss directing an upcoming DC feature. Okay. The story had been he's on the outs, that they took him out of Aquaman, that he shot those scenes, but they're not in there anymore. They're going to keep Ben Affleck and everybody else goes, maybe? The story was he's having troubles again. I don't know. As far as the Superman film itself, it says it's his young life as a cub reporter Metropolis, and he meets Lois Lane. Okay, but I've seen that several times. I mean, that's what I was meaning about Cavill. His Superman, he's already an established Superman. I mean, how much longer do we got? Maybe they'll throw in Brainiac in this one, but so it's a tough job to begin with, because the DCEU and Snyderverse, whatever you want to call it, has had its massive ups and downs and a lot of flaws in there. It was a bit of a mess, but you had diamonds in the rough. So I figured that's why they never quite just pull the trigger and start over from scratch. It looks like that's what they're going to do now. But, oh man, there's so much back and forth and twists and turns. And this type of thing where they told Henry, yeah, Henry, go ahead and tell him you're Superman again. And they allow the cameo to be shot. And this happens. And then, never mind. So it's all still a bit of a mess. Quite the mess. And something like this has just, it's given James Gunn a Mount Everest-sized hill to climb. And that's why I can't think it's just a creative decision on his part. They did have this meeting. They decided to meet in person to tell him, you know what, we're going to pass on you as Superman. My guess is they couldn't come to terms, whatever that was. But then again, it's this story about, the Cub reporter. I don't know. Or they were trying to get him to share the role with a younger version, and then they would bookend it with him. And he's like, I'm just getting more cameos. Forget it. Maybe. But if that's the case, then it sounds like, it says, we've got our DC slate ready to go. Well, maybe not so ready. But it's just all very sad. So maybe Cavill has a shot at James Bond, but considering what we've been hearing out of that, probably not. This all sounds pretty stupid. Granted, by the time you get to James Gunn's actual DC movies, because you got to go through their leftover films for the coming year, maybe people will have calmed down by then, and they'll be more welcoming to whoever the new actor is, and maybe they can pull it off. But they just dealt themselves a serious blow here, and I guess was necessary, because I don't understand this, but it's something we just don't know. Otherwise, this is odd. So, it says Gunn's project will not replace the previously announced J.J. Abrams' Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman, which is still in active development. Is it? Just like Rogue Squadron and all that. Well, anyway, this is too bad, and it's all very sad.